increasing opportunities for the next wave of filmmakers, which is you guys, which is what Nifty is all about. And we are very pleased to be here with all of you here today. Aaron?
Thank you. And Kate Gondway is here. She's the founder of Dead Zip Films, which is a distributor that she can introduce, I think. Kate, do you want to?
Yes.
Sorry.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. We're really excited to have this conversation. I think there's a lot of uncertainty and mystery around distribution for a lot of filmmakers. And I think this is an incredible opportunity that we get to talk, which is pretty rare. So we're excited to be with you all. I think the first thing that we can do is have all of our filmmakers give a little intro if you want to say your name and what film you have at the festival, and yeah, anything else that you think would be great to share.
My name's Andrea, pronouns are she, her. My film is called Srikandi, playing here at Nifty. I'm originally born and raised in Indonesia, but right now based in Vancouver, Canada. And my works usually explore genre films as a medium to talk about political, social, and cultural issues, mostly rooted in Indonesian myths and folklore.
Hi, everybody. My name is Vitória Vasconcelos. I'm an actor and filmmaker. I was born in the northeast of Brazil and I was raised there. Now I'm based in LA. I'm here with a short film called Pathe Matos that plays tomorrow around the same time, like 10:15. And my movies often explore just the poetry of female resilience with a focus definitely on the Latin American community, which is my people. And yeah, just a pleasure to be here.
Hi, I'm Xenia Matthews. I am a film and visual artist, and my films sort of are just like multimedia expressions of like concepts and themes that I want to talk about. I feel like a lot of my work like grapples with Black womanhood and just like personal things that have happened in my life. I like to joke that like every film that I make is about me, and it's just like a personal catharsis. But my pronouns are she, her, and I'm based in Philly, but I've been all around. So yeah.
Hello, my name is Don Eblahan, and I'm a filmmaker from the Philippines. I was born and raised there, but now I'm based sort of anywhere in the United States. I recently just got my green card here, so this is my first year sort of just going around and testing out how it's like to be based in the US, finding which city to be in. But yeah, I have a film here titled Hilam, and it's a film set in the hometown of my mother in the Philippines, the place where I spent most of my childhoods. And just like that, most of my films are sort of based on personal stories and explorations of my hometown and my country's post-colonial space, the effects of the American and Spanish colonization and its effects in the lives of young indigenous Filipinos in different islands in the Philippines. So, yeah.
Oh, can I say this? I forgot to mention my film is A Few Things I'm Beginning to Understand. It played last night, but it's also online. It's also streaming on the Metrograph website in NYC.
Thank you all so much. I think we can kick off by having, starting with another question for you guys. I think we're always really fascinated to know just a filmmaker at an early stage, whether it's their second short or their feature debut, sort of what of an understanding they have of distribution. So I'd love to, for those that can answer, if your films have been ever acquired or sales has been attached to it, and then we can sort of lead the conversation from there.
Should I start with what I know or where my film?
Let's start with if your film has been picked up and then sort of what you
Yeah, I've in the beginning I found it very limited for shorts distribution. I didn't really know where to go. But I think most of my distribution experiences come from film festivals. So if a film festival partners with like a streaming service or a distribution platform, that's where the initial talk starts. So we have been talking with a couple. So we're got like the films got, for example, like the film is gonna go to feature a film showcase in Toronto, and they partner with CBC. So usually the films that play there get a deal with CBC, like a 3-year non-exclusive. And then another part that we did was we participated in Sundance Asia last year, and we got offered for the film to be licensed in Argo, but we weren't ready to give up our festival run yet. So that one's still in talks. And I think from that, it just, this film experience, I think it gave me more knowledge of you can actually go to distributors, like whether it be in your country of residence. But I think that's the first one I go look out to. So in Canada, I find there's traveling distribution, there's H264, there's OAT Media, and I think some of them too are you can just really either email them or the info and then send them your screener, and they can tell you if they can help you with distribution or not. And then with features, I'm assuming the process is the same, question mark.
Yeah, I'm actually very much of a newbie when it comes to distribution. In Brazil, the funding for film has been cut by the government, and so because I make movies there and I make movies here, I usually try to go like the American route when it comes to that. And but I guess like the conversations that I've had so far have been with I guess streaming services like AltaVod, which is like a new one from Utopia Films, and other smaller ones that kind of come out of film festivals. But I haven't really made any like deals, or I've always been kind of intimidated or suspicious about the whole thing, just because that's not something that I learned about in film school. So yeah, I'm excited to learn more and see, you know, how I can find a home for my movies, and what's the best way to talk about all that.
I'm also a newbie when it comes to distribution. This film, I just finished it. I finished it last year, and I was part of a festival called Indie Memphis Film Festival, which is in Memphis, Tennessee. And they partnered with a theater in New York City called the Metrograph, and I had like a one-time screening there, and then I have a 6-month non-exclusive license with them this year. And one of the shorts, it's not finished in post, but I was part of a filmmaker lab called Black Star Philadelphia Filmmaker Lab, and they funded my entire short, and it was a lot. They funded my entire short, and then it's gonna be distributed on in 2023 on Xfinity's streaming platform. And if you guys don't know, Philadelphia is the home of Comcast, so like they have all those connections there. But that's pretty much all I know about distribution. Yeah, it's pretty much come through film festivals, and my Xfinity license is also non-exclusive. No, it's exclusive for a year, and then it's non-exclusive after that. But where I plan to take my work is more like installation. Like I really consider myself an artist first before a filmmaker, and I really want to, I don't know, try something new. Like I want to tour with an installation. Like that's how I want to like get my, like I just want people to have like a full body like immersive experience with like light and color and like all this fun shit. So yeah.
My experience with distribution has also just come from festivals as well. This film Helium that I have here was picked up by a French sales agent and production company and distribution company called L'Évasion, and they have the rights for it. I think the world rights. I didn't, but usually they kind of you kind of do like a contract, either like European sales or world sales or North American sales, something like that. But I think we have world sales for this film. And yeah, they sort of just saw our film in a film festival, and they sort of just do their own scouting and they find it, and then they reach out to you and they sell it to, for example, for European sales partners, they sort of just sell it to TV and DVDs and stuff like that. And I have another film, a more recent film called The Headhunter's Daughter, that was picked up by another French sales agent. And now they have sold it to Canal Plus, a French TV station, and they're looking to do more with it as well. But yeah, it's sort of just came from festivals. They sort of do their own scouting there, and if they see there's something cool in your film, or their catalog sort of matches with your style of work, then they'll pick it up.
You guys totally lied. You know so much about distribution, and I'm really glad that you, at such an early stage in your career, are able to engage with sort of some of the systems that are in play. I think there are a lot of things that were mentioned, but I think the most important things to just sort of flag here is that when it comes to short distribution, it's very, very different than feature distribution, obviously. And the things you have to look out for in contracts, from terms which you guys all discussed, whether, I'm sure you had to have serious talks with yourselves about whether or not you want a company to take all rights exclusive of your film for 25 plus years, which tends to happen in the feature space if you don't have a sales agent that's fighting for you when you're out in the festival world. And so it's really encouraging to hear, though, that you were all able to secure non-exclusive, pretty decent and fair terms, and also a lot of various different territories for everyone here, which is very interesting. And one thing that we really are dedicated towards at DEDZA is finding films from filmmakers of color without this notion that there has to be some sort of social justice angle to it, nor does it have to sort of fit within the boxes of what we sort of tend to think a person of color's story would be. And it's really interesting to hear that you are also like a multimedia artist, because we, with our company, we really, again, like to find filmmakers who are, at the cutting edge of cinema and other art forms, and what are the new exciting discoveries. And I think you mentioned Utopia, and I think they're a really great distribution company in the feature space, also asking those questions. You can think of Neon, you can think of Grasshopper, you can think of some other different Criterion movie companies that are, whether they're in the streaming space or more theatrical side, sort of doing having a focus on whether documentary, whether it's diverse stories or films from the global South, or filmmakers that are, balancing various different mediums outside. I think, Aaron, if you want to lead with the next question.
Sure. Well, I was just wondering, should we go more into
The audience?
the terms that kind of were thrown around, like exclusive, global rights? I don't know if it's helpful to kind of define some of those
I
things.
also have a question about that. Like, what is the difference between like selling your movie and like licensing it? Like, do you lose rights after selling it?
So that's a great question, and one that I'm sure you all very talented filmmakers will have to, face very soon. I think it really comes down to what stage of the life of your film is this, company coming on board. So for example, if you are, taking your film to festivals that are deemed like the marketplace, and for those of you that know, festivals are really broken down by category for a lot of distribution executives. And there's, the premium prestige festivals like Cannes and Toronto and Sundance and Berlinale, and there are markets within those spaces as well, from the European film market at EFM during Berlinale to American film market as well here in Hollywood. And a lot of what goes down there is, the conversation of a deal and an all rights acquisition. And those are, the types of deals in contracts you'll see as a filmmaker that you'll find the most, offers with, because, it's a lot of it is getting a film as soon as possible and beating down the competition as a distributor. And when distributors are deciding whether or not, a film is something that they should take for an all rights acquisition versus a flat fee, it really also comes down to the distributor themselves. So for example, a lot of you guys are engaging with streaming platforms and OTT, SVOD platforms, and that is very different than a theatrical distributor. With DEDZA, we are mainly focused in the theatrical space, but we do also tend to acquire all digital and also EDU and non-theatrical, and have relationships with Criterion Movie Stars and a few other platforms as well. But because we are operating as a theatrical distributor, we wouldn't, we wouldn't necessarily license a film. We would want to take more of the selected, all rights that, or the rights that we're wanting to take on the film. So all that to say, like, if you're dealing with a streaming platform, it's different because they're looking at it from, we don't have to take this movie to the theater. We can also just put it on our platform and sort of have more content for our platform. And that is more of the licensings that you'll see from Mubi or Criterion or other platforms that sort of are dedicated to short films. Same thing with Argo. And I hope that was helpful.
Well, are we able to ask audience questions? I don't know,
Yeah,
it's
I
even a
can't
thing.
really
don't-
see because there's two insane like suns. But we would love to sort of open it up to anyone here as well that's a filmmaker and curious about distribution, to see if any of our panelists can answer some questions or if we can.
Yeah. If not, we can ask more questions too.
Anyone have a question? No? Feel free to shout it out because we can't see anything.
Oh, so
Yeah. Yes. So the question is sort of for filmmakers that are functioning sort of outside the traditional mold, how do you have access to exhibiting your films? I think that's a question that we are constantly like asking ourselves, sort of maybe more so like consciously. And I think that it can be really hard. Sorry, I also like want to see your face, so that's why I'm doing this. But it can be really hard to find avenues that sort of can present your work. And I think a lot of what we found is that there are more alternative spaces that are like sort of, whether it's like pop-up cinemas or micro cinemas that sort of really had a surge during the pandemic, or if it's non-traditional online platforms. I think, there's a long list that we can, I'm sure after this, share with you as well. But there are a lot of different spaces that are sort of looking for a different kind of story. And by that, I also mean different ways of, creating that story. And I guess I'm curious to know, like, what, if you can give a little bit more description of like the work that you do.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I feel like spaces that are geared towards like visual art of all kinds, but they haven't like figured out a way to like incorporate video art and film art in their spaces are super open to like having you like present something and just like present an idea of how you can use their space to sort of like bring that video art aspect to their space. Because I feel like a lot of them are looking for it. I applied for a grant in Texas, or not a grant, a residency in Texas. And they were like super excited about my project. I got accepted, but I denied it for something else. But they were like super excited about the concept. They were like, we have tons of spaces where you can just like, you can film here, you can put on a show, like you can use this space in whatever kind of way that you want. So I feel like galleries and just like arts spaces that may not necessarily like be thought of as film spaces are super open to that. And then just like looking at other festivals, experimental categories, like are they programmed well? Are they just like all over the place? Do they have a vision for like what the actual block is going to be, or did they just throw everything in there that they didn't know how to classify? I feel like that's like two good places to start. And then there was a third one, but I forget what it is. Maybe it'll come to me. But yeah.
Well, next.
Well, I think you made really great points, and I think even the festivals like Black Star and Indie Memphis that are really focusing on changing, the independent landscape for a lot of Black filmmakers are actively really great at with a curatorial lens at experimental work, and they all focus on also including spaces that aren't just theaters but also open gallery spaces for your work to be installed. And I think that there's actually, it upsets me that your friend said that you like critiqued your work because as a more experimental filmmaker, because I think so many incredible filmmakers start out in that space. I think that's where you sort of really understand your voice and can manipulate a lot, which is really hard to do, but also really incredibly rewarding. And I think there's something very unique and special, obviously, about the experimental landscape, and shooting on film is something that every filmmaker you sort of like dreams of, but also is something so I think personal in many ways. And so I really we are huge fans of films that are sort of maybe again you don't really, there's like a line between is it cinema or what is it, and like that sort of like Scorsese type of conversation that could be had on what is cinema. But I think ultimately there are filmmakers, for example, like Garrett Bradley, who's probably more notable at this current time of not just being a filmmaker but also being an artist. And I think there is actually something incredibly additive for filmmakers that are functioning in different sectors, because for us as distributors, we're actively looking for filmmakers that have something beyond just what everyone else has. Because I mean, everyone at a festival is there because they are worthy of it and that you're talented, but there's also another thing that we are looking for, which is like who are you, what do you have to say, but also what communities are you engaging with. And for so long our voices, the territories in which we are sort of just born out of, and without a decision of being born out of those places, are dictate sort of our how far we can go in our careers, which is for us like why we started this, is because like it shouldn't be that way. But I also think that there's a lot of response currently in the marketplace, but also with like the players and all the distribution companies where they're really wanting to find new voices. And that means by diverse filmmakers. That also means by filmmakers that are, in VR, in, animation, in, you know, what also outside of in photography or other sectors. So it's actually, I would say it's actually very beneficial to have to be tapped into both as a filmmaker. And again, if you're a feature, when you make your feature film, I'm sure a distributor would want to, and to bring in Garrett again, to have that installation aspect of your work be part of the theatrical life of the film. You look at like Memoria doing like a roadshow type style distribution release, and how fucking cool and exciting that is. And I'm biased because I work at Neon, but I also think that like doing creative releases that fit the filmmaker's like sort of multifaceted background in both the art space, in both filmmaking, and in both like sustainable practice of filmmaking is super fun. Audiences love it. I mean, like, I think that like if your film is going to be playing at a graveyard, it's going to be playing at a graveyard. If your film is going to be playing in a movie theater, it's going to be playing in a movie theater. If your film is going to be playing in some mom and pop shop in a regional market, then like, so be it. Like, that's fucking cool, and that it brings new audiences to your film. And yeah, again, I think that's something that exhibition and distributors right now are actively thinking about, because after the pandemic, we have to really sort of find, you know, these new audiences, and young people don't necessarily go to the movies as often as we used to. And that's like, I'm part of that problem, and working in a space that's actually trying to fight against it as well. But you know, it's just all that to say, keep going. And there are definitely ways to get your story out there, and with how you're sort of currently practicing it.
So I would love to hear more about things that we should know when talking to a distributor. Like, how does that conversation look like? Because I feel like from my experience, what has happened was we got like an offer out of a festival or because of a festival, and we either just like take it or leave it, but we just don't go past that. So I know that you guys did Neptune's Frost and distributed that. And I'm wondering like how much research goes into that. Should we look for for places that have distributed movies that are similar to ours, or maybe that don't have anything like it? Like, what should that conversation look like on the filmmaker's end?
I guess, I don't know, it's difficult. I guess I would say it's kind of to both of you, being in the video art, kind of the in-between space. I don't, it's hard to give advice, because when you give advice, it's always like, you can do these things, but it's you can find these alternative communities, but that takes some labor on your part, and like research, like you said. So it's like, I don't know, like I can give you both suggestions, and I think that goes a far way, just finding those communities. But I recognize it like takes more individual work. I don't know, a lot of the advice is more work on the filmmaker. But sorry, I'm not trying to sound cynical or bleak, but I guess that's if you want.
Yeah, I think that as a filmmaker, as anyone in this industry, like many other industries, like I'm pretty like pro like do the research, because like that's part of like, like that's just part of the career that we have. And I think that obviously with distribution, it could be incredibly better. And I think that having panels like this open conversation for you to better understand it. So I think that, and to add to Aaron, like part of doing the work is also like finding an immense amount of community, because having community in this industry is incredibly crucial in launching you, and also having a sustainable career. It can be really challenging, obviously, as you all know, being an independent filmmaker, and there's a lot of shit that you have to take. And, you know, I think what's really encouraging though is that this next wave of distribution is a lot more filmmaker friendly and collaborative. And whether or not the like big distribution companies like that or not, they have to do that too. And I think one of the things to when you're going into a conversation with the distributor is, as a filmmaker, you know, if you don't have a sales agent, you really should do the research. And I think having producers that also have experience in distribution is incredibly important. If you're going to be making your first feature, you should have a producer that has at least made one feature that has gotten distribution, because if you don't, a lot of distributors just won't even look at the film. And that's like, there are certain rules that I think filmmakers should know about, you know, and if your film's not playing at a certain festival, then you're not going to get this kind of distributor. However, there are like things that are actively changing. So like, for example, a film like Test Pattern, which Kino Lorber acquired, was bought out of a regional market, Black Star. That is very like rare. And you'll find like companies like Shudder sort of doing active work with more of the genres festivals as well. And that's incredible. And there are distributors that are, you know, changing sort of some of these rules, but those are far in between. And the real traditional rules, which we all fucking hate, but are there, are important to know, because that's sort of the game that you're playing. And obviously we function as a distributor trying to actively combat and challenge those rules and provide more access for filmmakers to know about these rules. But I think the number one thing is to know, like, sort of first who you are as a filmmaker, and that's not just as a story, what kind of stories you want to tell, but also what spaces do you want to engage with? You know, what does that look like for you? Some filmmakers don't want to, you know, make their, you know, little indie Sundance film and then go on to like make a Marvel movie. Some filmmakers genuinely want to remain in, you know, the short space. Some filmmakers generally want to remain in a certain space that, you know, they want. And that is important to know, because if you do a deal with a certain company, you're getting involved with, you know, a different level of industry. And I think I think it ultimately is just very much case by case, but you now all have us as a reference, as resources. I would say there are a lot of incredible festivals like this one that do a lot of like networking events and also bring filmmakers with players. And that's really important as filmmakers to have a network. I think just so when you're going into these meetings, Victoria and everyone else, like I would actively have in the back of your mind sort of like what are my next steps. And it doesn't just have to be like knowing what your script is and pitch, but it's also like, you know, maybe I want to go to this festival next time. Maybe I want to you know, make from a $2 million feature to a $5 million feature or a $20 million feature. And like, that's a whole different ballgame. So like knowing that it takes a different level of companies being in your court, but also a different level of sort of navigating as a filmmaker yourself. And yeah, it's hard for me to answer without getting really in the like granular, but I hope like those points were helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That was super helpful, especially with the rules that we should know, because I think those are harder to find just by doing like normal internet research. Like we can find catalog and things, but those rules, I like you mentioned, sound like things that we should definitely know. So I appreciate your answer.
I think working your connections is like the most important part, because like I made my film on like absolutely no budget. I made it by myself. Like I did everything in it. And I just asked people who had like more festival experience than I did, like what's a good festival to go to, what festivals are like really for the filmmakers, and like what festivals are like more tailored towards audiences, like what kind of opportunities exist at each festival. And then if those filmmakers have been to festivals, they could probably get you a waiver. Like you mentioned Test Pattern. Shatara Michelle Ford, the director of Test Pattern, she got me a waiver into Indie Memphis when it was like way past the last submission deadline. What else? One of the programmers from Slam Dance got me a few waivers, or offered to get me a few waivers if I wanted to submit to places. Just like really connect with the people that like love your work and love your film and really want to see you like succeed and then literally get in for free, because like as young people, like so many programmers were telling me like you shouldn't be paying for like festival entry unless you have like no connection to the festival at all. So, and that's like, you could like know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody that's like been in that festival, and if you like work your way down that line, you could probably get in for free. I got like a lot of waiver offers, a lot of like discount codes. And then just like seeing like which festivals are actually worth going to and like showing your film at, because if you like get connected to a really good festival, just one good festival, it could really open up like a lot for you.
Sort of echoing on that, like once you get into a festival, it almost just snowball affects itself into other festivals, because programmers may be present in another festival and saw your film and really liked it, and then one day you'll just get an email like, hey, I have this festival, we can give you a waiver code, discount code, and whatnot. But also to answer your main question, one of my latest films was made in $1,000 budget. That's pretty low budget for short film. And we also didn't have connections, but we luckily got into Sundance Film Festival. And it's like, thank you. Yeah, and then, we had no connections and we didn't absolutely knew no one. And, some of our friends were asking like, oh, like, did you know anyone? Like, did you kind of like, and then, no, we paid the submission fee and everything, and we just tried. And, from the beginning, we sort of thought that this film could belong in Sundance even before finishing the final draft of the script. For some reason, we felt like it kind of belonged there. So the way we made the film, sort of subconsciously, we felt like, okay, this will be our like Sundance film pretty much. And luckily it did happen. And, from the beginning, think about where you want your film to end up in. Even if, it might be impossible for us, it was very impossible. We had, it was during the pandemic in the Philippines. We weren't even supposed to be filming. We were breaking a lot of rules, and it was $1,000. So a lot of us were unpaid and overworked, and had to take on different jobs on set and post. And there was like 6 of us on set, and no matter how small the budget, if you think from the very beginning, even during the writing process, where you want your film to end up in, it might just really happen. It'll go like naturally, just go there.
Yeah, just to echo on that, like something that I found to be super important, because I'm also like a no budget like filmmaker for most of my movies, like hardly ever have like a sizable budget. And something that has helped a lot is just watching film festivals. It sounds so silly, but as short film filmmakers, we watch so many more features than we do short films. Like if a friend has a short, like you see it, but I don't think have a habit as like a group to consistently go to short film festivals and watch the selections and get familiar with, oh, this is TIFF style, this is Sundance style, this is. So just by watching the selections, now that so many things are online and we can just buy a pass and watch like hundreds of short films for like one fee, when by getting familiarized with these films like that, it's easier to have a sense of like, oh, this could be like, this is like a Sundance kind of film that I'm shooting, or this would be a better fit for Slam Dance. So and it really helps. And the other thing is Daniel saying that I think is super important, submission fees. Like from my experience, you don't even need to be connected to a festival to get a submission fee. Sending an email and asking for like a waiver code, like the worst thing that can happen is that they ignore your email. But in my experience, like I've saved over like $500 in the past just like by sending like, hey, this is my name, this is my movie, we don't have a lot of money, can you help? Yeah, can you help? And like most of them will be like, yeah, here's like a little waiver code, because they're interested in seeing our work. And I find that most times, if what's standing between like a hardworking filmmaker in a film festival is a fee, like it's money, that they themselves would be like, no, let me help. Like, that's, we all want to be in a festival together. So yeah, so I'd say like try your shot. Like worst thing can happen is that you're still going to be in the same place. But yeah.
It's a good way to know like if the festival replies you, that's like your type of festival, so it actually like filters things too for you. Like usually for me, like if they do give a waiver, you can start knowing like what style your film is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wouldn't, yeah, just drop your screeners everywhere.
I would just say, back to your point about kind of not having the, or wanting to, not being able to put all of that energy into the research. I think a lot of what people are saying is to reach out and find someone who kind of knows it more. And I know it's very, connecting with, finding that person is very arbitrary and kind of out of luck, or, but I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess I'm saying, yeah, that if you don't want to like overextend yourself in that regard, I think there are people who are kind of in that realm like us, and you could ask us questions. You can reach out to us now. But I would, yeah, I don't know. I recommend, if you don't want to like spend all your energy on this other laborious part on top of making your film, to kind of share that burden with communities like ours, I guess.
Actually, another thing that I remember too, so like for example, if you do manage to at least get yourself into one good festival, like we were saying, and then sometimes just noticing if a short is similar to yours, has like the same tones or like grouped into the same program. And then if you really like that short, what I usually do is that, of course, like the filmmakers like in the same program usually know each other, but then I would stop their festival run journey.
Yeah.
And then actually just grab like, oh, they got into this festival, they got into this festival, and also do that with a lot of filmmakers that I adore and I'm a fan of, and then just see what their festival run is. Because if you know that your film is very similar to theirs, there's a huge chance that you'll get accepted in those festivals too.
Yeah, I feel like even like you can do like tons and tons of research on a festival, but I feel like what is way more valuable is a filmmaker who's been there, like what they thought of the festival, like how did they treat them as a filmmaker, what opportunities were there at the festival is like way more important to me than like anything that I could have researched. And then what's your name again? Yeah, to Andrea's point, I think talking to filmmakers who are like in your block, who have like similar styles to you, like at Indie Memphis, I was paired with, my film was right before one of Naima Ramos Chapman's shorts, and she works on Random Acts of Flyness at HBO and also Betty. And now we're like friends. I have her number. She like texts me like what's up like all the time. So if you're like you could just like talk to people if you like recognize a name or you like recognize like who they are, especially if it's like virtual, you could just like hit them up like on Zoom, like if you guys are in a Zoom together, like I loved your short, it was amazing, blah blah blah, and you guys can like connect on that level. And like she like tells me like what's good and what's not, like what to stay away from. Like I knew to accept the Metrograph licensing thing because she told me that they're good people and that she trusts them. And like that was like way more important to me than like like whatever I could have researched. Like because like facts on a page are facts on a page, but if you have like a personal experience from like a couple people, you can actually gauge whether or not it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, and also I think something that's been super valuable for me is if you have a smaller movie that's just not making into like a big festival that's just not supposed to be going that way, finding your community wherever you are. So film festivals that are local, they're maybe in your neighborhood, people that you may already even know, those like smaller connections, I guess like small town connections, can take you so far away, because at the end of the day, like it doesn't matter the size of the festival. All you want is like passionate people to connect with and to be able to help you with your career. So like in my case, I tend to look for Brazilian or Latin American film festivals in cities that I'm not familiar with. If I want a future movie to play in a different country that I don't know anyone, like I try to look for those, like the communities sort of like far away, because it tends to be just people trying to help other people. I feel like those are the best festival experiences, when you're in a place where everyone wants to get connected and get to know your work, which is kind of the experience that I'm having here. So I'd say like look for those opportunities as well, if the short film that you're working with is not like going to the big five or something.
I think that's all the time we have, but I know this is a huge topic, so if anyone wants to talk with us afterward or has any questions, yeah.
Thank you all so much, and let's give a round of applause for our filmmakers. Thanks everyone for coming out. Thanks.